best.
Yeah. So one article that I want to ask you about. It was, and I don't know. I read about it. I heard it on a podcast. Got 2-3 years ago. I've heard it referenced over and over again. I kind of looked into it, and I did see it on the New York Times. So I don't know if you're familiar with it or where you think, if there's any foul play here. But in the because they're claiming foul play wasn't play, but
Yeah.
in the 1960s, the sugar industry paid basically paid scientists to downplay the how bad sugar was and put all the blame on saturated fat in terms of heart disease.
That's true. I go into that in my new book, Food Shaman: The Art of Quantum
Oh,
Food.
you do? Neat. Okay.
We could do a whole podcast on there. Yeah, basically what you have, and we talked about sort of the powers that be.
Yeah.
In the 50s and 60s, there were sort of two different camps. One was led by John Yudkin, who was a professor out of Great Britain, who said, what really seems to be the problem here is that there's sugar in everything, kind of what we were just talking about, and it's being added to everything, and sugar consumption is going through. And he actually wrote a book about it. In the United States, the leading proponent was Ansel Keys, and he's the father of the cholesterol, saturated fat hypothesis, saying, no, the problem is saturated fat. We need to get rid of saturated fat in the diet. Yudkin's research is BS, and, went back and forth. And as you can see, in terms of, and this did actually get very political in the early 1970s. Keys was very influential. In fact, he was on the cover of Time magazine, for this. And it was in the early 70s. So we're talking, getting on 50 years now, half a century.
Yeah.
And we talk about these things being put out that, just because they've been repeated over and over, have become kind of the gospel of food and nutrition. And that's where Keys came out and said, no, it's saturated fat. And he won the politics of the day, which is where we got the governmental recommendations that came from Hubert Humphrey's Senate subcommittee hearing. I believe it was like in 72, 73. Don't quote me on that for sure, but it was around then time that Keys published his very influential 7-country study, so on and so forth, that, it was like, okay, case closed. And I was talking to this with somebody earlier today. I said, anytime anybody looks at the science, particularly when it comes to science and health and food and health, it says there's no room for discussion, the case is closed, it usually means the case is pretty
that's
open.
a red flag right there.
And so they came out and said saturated fat, and it won the politics of the day. And so half a century later, we're trying to turn the ship around.